This boy's bloodlines go back to the Bronze Age. Those deep hazel eyes gaze out from the mists of legend. His ancestors were Bran and Scaolan and Conbec, the great hound companions of Finn, the leader of the Fianna. And in historic times, they led armies, these dogs, into battle while the war pipes wailed, savage and fearless. But the glory days passed, the conquerors came, and the Irish hound, the Cúmór, died out, along with so much else that was proud and lovely. Generations passed, and then one of those conquerors, a Scottish soldier, set out to retrieve the breed from pets and farm dogs that showed signs of the lineage. He brought the Irish hound back to life. The recovery came at a price, though. I've never known anyone who's owned a wolfhound who hasn't experienced heartbreak.
Yeah. We lost a boy at 22 months, and he was my heart hound. He was my boy, and it's devastating. It really is. They don't live that long anyway, so losing one even earlier hurts.
Why do you think it happens?
They're a giant breed, and it seems that the giant breeds, their hearts and bodies, don't last. And while there are some who do, I mean, some lines that live longer, and you're fortunate. They also seem to, I think, as the giant breeds, suffer from more of the human things that kill us, cancer and things like that.
But it's worth it, huh?
Wouldn't trade them for the world. I'd rather have a year with one of these than 10 with something that doesn't sort of crawl into your heart and make itself at home. And that's what they do.
It's hard in a way to see the old warhounds, wolfhounds in this so gentle a creature.
Yeah.
That all got bred out of them.
I'm not sure that it's gone. I think that they've adapted, many of them. You still see it in some lines. You still see that prey drive at times. And I don't know that I would want to see somebody try and hurt me around one of my dogs.
Yeah.
But other than that, no. I mean, they are gentle. They are calm. And I know somebody who has taken their wolfhound through full obedience to the top levels, and still, if that dog sees a jackrabbit, is not interested in following orders at all. I'm gone, I'm out of here. So I think they still have those instincts. I'm
looking at Saul's undercoat here, which you would call it red, right? It's a sort of fox color.
Yeah.
Now, maybe mistakenly, when I was a kid, these were called Cúmór Glass, which is the gray dog. And I thought they were... When did the varieties of color come in?
I suspect that what may have happened is that when you were growing up, the breeders where you were, and you were in Ireland, right?
Okay.
May have preferred a gray dog. So what were the ones they shipped to North America, right? Send the other colors off. So I think it may have been that in your part of the world, yes, they were gray, because that was a choice. But certainly, Graham left it open to a lot more variety, probably because bringing a breed back, you have to have that.
But the hounds of Finn were grey and Cúmór Glass. When did they start breeding colours into them? And how? The recovery of lost animals, the wolfhound, the tarpan, the quagga, is heartwarming. These are acts of reparation by the race that caused the extinctions. But the history of husbandry agronomy, horticulture, livestock breeding is about improvement, about progress, which is really a Frankensteinian enterprise. It's speeding up and tailoring evolution, or if you prefer, the Creator's designs, to mankind's needs and specifications.
Wheat is not indigenous to North America. It's an introduced species as much as you and I are. Wheat evolved from the introgression of bringing together of 3 different species of grasses.
Deliberately or by nature's happenstance?
By nature's happenstance and chance mutations, and people as gatherers of the seeds of the grasses found these different types and domesticated them. Well, in the original species of wheat, the spikelet would fall to the ground, and the people would gather these spikelets from the ground as individual spikelets. A naturally occurring mutation resulted in the spikelets remaining attached to the spike. So whoever that human being was that noticed that said, this is a value. I don't have to do stoop labor. They retained that seed off of that plant and then planted it out and grew it. And that trait is it's an incredibly valuable mutation, naturally occurring mutation that has resulted in the domestication of wheat. And that's what I'm not sure but it's several thousand years before present that happened.
Is there a danger of losing the gene pool by getting away from the grandparents?
If we don't take deliberate steps to conserve the ancestors, we could lose them. So collecting the wild relatives out of that area, the wild types, becomes very important.
Is there a more than scientific impulse in developing wheat strains?
I think of the development of wheat strains as underpinned by science, genetics, mathematics, cytogenetics, pathology, entomology, cereal chemistry, biotechnology, entomology. It's underpinned by a knowledge of all of these different sciences. And then it's got to be integrated. And then I think the art comes into it through the integration of all of this and the eye to see.
And you're helping the world too.
Well, very much so. The products of genetic enhancement are really fascinating. Like, what is it that we get from the plant? Well, the plant is there, this poor little thing that's growing. It can't walk for water. It can't say I'm thirsty. It can't say I need nutrients. So it has to be extremely robust. And the work that we do is to try and make it more robust so that the plant can be more photosynthetically efficient. The chlorophyll of the plant is able to capture the radiant energy and convert it into a chemical energy that we as humans and animals can eat. So it becomes a way by which you can further food for all. If there wasn't an increase in the productivity of the plants, the adaptation of the plants, we wouldn't be able to keep pace with the rate of population growth. If it wasn't for plants, we wouldn't be around.
It does though spark the first of my 2 paranoid questions. Are we talking about genetic modification here?
By genetic modification, we're talking about recombinant DNA. That means taking genes from one family of plants or animals and intermating it with the DNA from a completely different family, like mating donkeys and onions or people and bacteria. So we're not doing anything like that. What we are using is the natural genes of wheat.
In layman's terms, you create a new breed by hybridizing existing breeds, right? What are you essentially breeding for, Ron?
I'm essentially breeding for productivity traits and traits for end processing. So the trait, what I mean by that would be the traits that allow the wheat plant to be successfully grown in our environment, which would be, the maturity, plant height, the strength of the straw, how well the seed is held in the head so that it doesn't fall to the ground prior to the combining operation. And of course, grain yield. And this results in better water use efficiency, better nitrogen use efficiency, all of that kind of stuff, like building better photosynthetic plants.
Now, is this the result of that extra season that you can artificially create that I'm looking at here?
This is one way to create an artificial season, by growing the materials in the greenhouse. But it's very expensive to grow it in a greenhouse. Whereas if we can grow the plants outdoors in our wintertime, which would be the summertime in a southern latitude, the cost of doing it is about 100-fold less when we go to a southern latitude. If one was to grow only one generation a year, that would take 8 years of inbreeding. But because we use a contra-season nursery in the wintertime, we take it to what is the summertime in a southern latitude.
So you cut it in half?
Yeah, so we cut it in half, and time is worth a lot of dollars. From the time we make an initial cross to developing inbred lines and then going through the pre-registration and the registration trials, that usually takes from 8 to 10 years. And then that seed company will multiply up that seed, and after 3 years, they'll have about what they think the market will require. So that's now up to 13 years from the time we make a cross to when the first commercial growers will actually have it on their farms.
So the time of development may actually be longer than the lifespan of the strain.
Right, and that's where it's very important to have the long view on cultivar development. That you have to know very clearly what you're targeting, what are all of the constraints, what are your genetic resources, what you have for resources to get there. And yes, there's only a few varieties that make it out, and the vast, vast majority fail.
Huh. Now this is an escape artist. It's a shapeshifter too. It's stowed away from the old world, disguised as another flower, and now you find it everywhere. To most people, this is the tough little weed, Johnny Jump Up, though where I was raised, it was always called heartsease. But it's also the little western flower that the jealous Oberon, in A Midsummer Night's Dream, sent Puck to find, to take his revenge on Titania. In Oberon's tale, an arrow gone wild from Cupid's bow fell and pierced this flower, before milk white, now purple with love's wound. It's a wild pansy, of course, cousin to our own wild violet. And these, I suppose, are tame pansies, domesticated, cultivated, improved, with colors and patterns, textures and dimensions undreamed of in nature. And every year they come out with new varieties. When you find a plant, a flower, how do you change it?
Well, usually you have to find more than one. You have to find something to cross it with. For example, the Shasta daisy, although we don't see the original Shasta daisy anymore, was a hybrid between a California version and one from the New England states. They were both simple little daisies. And the breeders, the first breeder of that, Luther Burbank, made them with really long petals that were all twisted, and they looked spectacular. But people didn't clone those, and they kind of went back to their old ways of looking like a daisy like they do now.
So the start of new development is always hybridization, isn't it?
It usually is, although sometimes some of the early, like the strawberry we have today, is a hybrid between the North American strawberry, which even grows is mostly in Canada, and the Chiloensis. Well, the first one is Virginiana, the second one is Chiloensis. And it was only botanists in France that had them growing in their botanical gardens that they crossed with each other. And that gave us the modern strawberry, or the descendants of that.
So the plants did it themselves without
The plants
encouragement
did it,
or
yeah.
plan.
Yeah, later on when people learned about genetics and plant breeding, they did it deliberately.
You spoke about those Shasta daisies.
Yeah.
Someone developed, through hybridization, I presume, and deliberate hybridization, a very twisted, you said?
Well, some of them had petals this long. I have an old book in my office on the, but they were long and they were doubled flowers. They didn't have, it wasn't like a daisy like that. It was more like a mum.
And then you said that disappeared because the plants reverted, right?
Because people let them go to seed rather than taking the original plant and making cuttings of that original plant.
Why is it that if you plant these very gaudy, improved pansies, a couple of years later, you're going to get a garden full of Johnny jump-ups? Why?
Well, they may have bred some of those into it. Of course, some of it's planned obsolescence by the plant breeder.
Really?
You know, if you can make a hybrid that somebody's going to plant, and if they save the seeds, it's horrible, well, then you have to come back every year and buy seeds from them.
Okay, but explain this to me now, then. You have this gorgeous, some people would think, or overblown, other might think, big velvety pansy, which is going to throw seed that won't be that flower. How do you get millions of that huge, gaudy pansy so that people can buy it as bedding plants if the seed isn't good?
Well, maybe they have a version that doesn't make any pollen. Is you just grow one variety that makes no pollen next to something that does make pollen, then you just harvest every seed off that one plant, and it's a hybrid. If it's something that be vegetatively propagated, you don't have to make it true from seed.
Which means taking cuttings in
Taking cuttings, and once you see the plant you like, then it's fine. You just make cuttings and you always get it. But as soon as you save seed from that, it can degenerate to any of its grandparents. Right. Or a combination of those. But certain annuals can be true from seed, like your pansies, you could grow out all those seeds and every year weed out the bad ones, and probably you'd eventually you could wind up with a more colorful Johnny Jump Up, right? If you were really diligent. Yeah. But it probably would revert to the adapted parent or close to it.
How much of it is plan and how much of it is luck?
A lot of it's luck, but you get better luck by playing bigger numbers. If you're an amateur and you want to breed pansies and you grow 20 seeds a year, you're going to need an awful lot of luck. But if you have a greenhouse like this and you're going to grow 10,000 seeds a year, then your luck has greatly improved. A lot of our time is just thinking, which one of these what is this plant good for? Like, what is its positive thing? And what does it need from what other variety? Like, you learn your varieties, you say, well, this one makes big flowers. This one makes lots of flowers. Can we get one that makes lots of big flowers? A lot of seed companies know that the average gardener wants something new every now and then. So they kind of plan that, you know, this new variety is going to last maybe 5 or 7 years, and then nobody's going to want it. The new one will sell more. So they're always looking for something new.
I mean, I have friends who grow heritage seeds, and they're nuts about the fact that the gene pool is in danger.
Well, the gene pool is in danger because, especially for ornamentals, because government isn't doing anything about it. Right? They don't collect ornamental species. They only collect food species. And even those guys are a little bit in danger.
fairest flowers of the season are your carnations and streaked gillivores, which some call nature's bastards. Of that kind our rustic gardens barren, and I care not to get slips of them.
Wherefore, gentle maiden, do you neglect them?
For I have heard it said, there is an art, which in their piedness shares with great creating nature.
Say there be. Yet nature is made better by no mean, but nature makes that mean. So over the art that you say adds to nature is the art that nature makes. You see, fair maid, we marry a gentler Seán with the wildest stock, and make conceive a bark of baser kind by bud of nobler race. This is the art which does mend nature. Change it rather, but the art itself is nature.
So it is.
Then make your garden rich in gillivores, and do not call them bastards.
I'll not put the dibble in earth for one slip of them. No more than were I painted, I would wish this youth to say 'twere well, and only therefore desire to breed by me. Here's flowers for you.
One of the things I love about Heartsease is that it can't truly be tamed. Plant commercial pansies in your garden, those sumptuous, velvety, monstrously beautiful painted creatures, and next year they'll be gone. But you'll find these Johnny jump-ups springing everywhere from their seeds, back from the crucible, leaping back to the dark ages, to the lap of great creating nature, in defiance of progress. Oh, no man knows, wrote Walter de la Mare, through what wild centuries rose back the rose. The little western flower will outlive us all.